Hello and welcome to another episode of Bitcoin in Asia. Our guest this week is Raghu Mohan, founder and CEO of IBC Media, which, among other things, runs a significant accelerator, as well as India's largest blockchain conference, Genesis DevCon. The focus of the conversation is the recent Supreme Court ruling in India that reversed what had been the status quo put in place by a prior Reserve Bank of India ruling for the past 3 years. Raghu puts it into context for us, clearly analyzing the rulings, the bodies involved, and the implications for Bitcoin businesses in India, with one of the more significant implications being the way that Bitcoin exchanges in India are allowed to operate. We also discuss India's market for Bitcoin more generally and the media landscape there. I hope you enjoy. Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on to break down what's happening in India.
Thanks so much, John. Happy to be here, and it's been a long time coming, and I'm glad that we're doing something together now.
So to kind of kick things off, can you give us a quick background of kind of your work history, ideological foundation, how you got into Bitcoin in the first place? Just a kind of brief overview of your background.
Sure, sounds good. So, like everybody else in India, I'm in engineering. I went to engineering school and quickly realized that it's not for me. After my 4 years, I joined a startup in a sales role, and I've ever since been in startups. Then it's been about close to 10 years now, and I have helped found and start and scale two very, very high growth companies in India. One is YourStory.com, which is one of India's biggest startup publications, and one is HackerEarth, which is one of the world's biggest community of programmers. Post that, I did a short stint with Udacity, the Silicon Valley education company, and we led growth for it in India, after which I started up. My startup in the beginning was focused at providing boutique marketing services for emerging tech companies, specifically in IoT and renewables. And as you would have it, blockchain kind of happened to us. And, there were just multiple companies that wanted go-to-market growth and investor relations services, which is how we started off with blockchain. Bitcoin specifically was a common payment mode used for our services, and that's how we kind of got to really using it. Of course, we had heard of it before. Back in 2013, there was a campaign by Coinbase on a global level which picked up a lot of steam in India called Try Bitcoin, where you'd get $10 worth Bitcoin for signing up. So we did that, and
nice little sum there, yeah.
Yeah, I know, right? So you kind of had a good. We knew what it was. We knew the technology was picking up. A bunch of meetup groups kind of happened, and then 2017 really caught the attention. Blockchain and Bitcoin kind of caught the attention of the public, and for good reasons and bad. And ever since it's been no looking back.
So it seems like a major theme among kind of people working in the Bitcoin space in India that it seems like all of y'all became founders kind of right out of college after getting engineering degrees. So it's funny that you say like everyone else. It's cool that it's a good kind of indication of just the entrepreneurial spirit there and how that's kind of booming right now.
Well, to be fair, I didn't become a founder right out of engineering college. I had the privileged to be a part of the first 5 members of 2 very big startups in India. So that was as far as my founding experience before the last 3 years. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
Joining a nascent startup, I guess, is included in that bucket.
I'm glad you think so. I didn't have as nearly as much risk and stress as the founders, but sure, I'll take it if you're giving me that. So YourStory is, one of the kind of leading media companies covering startups, entrepreneurship. That's kind of your first media experience. And then now your current company, IBC Media. Can you kind of a brief overview of what y'all do? Sure. So back in 2018, one of our clients wanted to do a really large conference in India. So, with Udacity, with Hacker Earth, and with YourStory, I've had experiences of doing events, and we basically kind of came on a one project only kind of basis to set this up. And what resulted is we got in uncertain climates. We got a government agency. We've got 3 state governments who participated, and an IT minister of a country of a big rich state who came in and shared his vision for blockchain and in India. So that was I thought that there was something special that we picked up, and IBC kind of was born as a part of that. The focus of IBC has always been within startup enablement. We strongly believe that emerging technologies have really disruptive capabilities. I've seen this time and time again over my last 10 years of experience, and we wanted to basically create a startup enablement service that would help innovators connect with big problems. The way we do achieve this work is by working with startups at a fundraising and a business level, help corporates set up startup outreach programs, run incubators and accelerators, and very large scale events. It's been about 2 years. It's going to be about 2 years and a bit for us, and in this time we have run a government accelerator, India's first public chain accelerator, a SME Enterprise Connect program with Microsoft. And we did one of India's biggest developer conferences as well. So things are coming along well, and that's a brief of what we do.
And then let's jump right into, I guess, kind of the big news of the day, which is the Supreme Court ruling in India overturning kind of a central bank board's previous ban on trading cryptocurrencies. Can you break that down a little bit for us? Tell us kind of exactly what was ruled by the Supreme Court, what it overturned.
Sure, I'm happy to delve into that. I want to start off by saying that cryptocurrency was never banned in India. It was always there. Just the central banking access to anyone dealing with cryptocurrency was revoked. It was revoked by the Reserve Bank of India, which is an extra governmental agency. It's in no way related to the government. The circular basically prohibited any mainstream bank that was affiliated with the Reserve Bank of India to do business, which includes providing loans, custody, bank accounts to anyone dealing with cryptocurrencies. This affected the exchanges the most because essentially the fiat on-ramp was taken off. This was challenged in court by some of the leading exchanges in India and the IAMAI. Which is an association for emerging tech and entrepreneurs and startups, and the case against the Reserve Bank of India was essentially saying that such a ban is unconstitutional. It was dictating what people could do with their own money, and secondly, it was trying to regulate something that it didn't recognize. So, for the RBI to levy any such prohibition on the use case of it, on the use of cryptocurrency, would also need for them to recognize it. The ruling, in a sense, is basically saying the same thing. It is suggesting that, it has declared that such a ban such a ban that is unconstitutional, and the RBI, with immediate effect, is to recede that circular to all governments, to all banks. So, as a result, we are already seeing Uno Coin, which is one of the exchanges that actually got most hurt by the RBI banking ban. They've already started resuming fiat deposits and withdrawals. WazirX will start that off again. So essentially what the ruling means right now is that the fiat on-ramp for INR to BTC or any crypto for that matter is back on.
Right, and apologies for making you run through the actual previous scenario, which was not a ban.
Yeah, I think it's important to say because I think the governments basically The government, I think it's a bit of harsh words from the government's circulars and recommendations, as well as the RBI circulars and recommendation, and how it was interpreted by the media, and no credit to all the clickbaity headlines that came out that basically called extrapolated the banking ban to an outright ban of cryptocurrency. So I just even if you hadn't mentioned it, I would have liked to clarify that. And every person that I meet who asks me about crypto in India, I re-emphasize that crypto is not banned in India, and give them the entire context.
So you mentioned Unocoin as a company that was affected. It was kind of one of the leading exchanges in kind of the early Bitcoin boom in India, along with a couple of other names that people might recognize. And that kind of cutting off of access to a fiat on-ramp a couple of years ago. Can you kind of walk us through how that affected exchanges like Unocoin and how this ruling kind of frees them up, how it affects their ability to operate? Can you walk us through that?
For sure. Look, when you take off the ramp onto onto crypto from the local currency, what that does is it kind of restricts the number of new users that can enter an exchange or enter crypto effectively. Unocoin was a specific example which I took up because they were one of the first companies to kind of figure out a way around this. Of course, there have been later peer-to-peer implementations of it. It's the likes of WazirX have done really well. Binance has acquired them, as everybody knows. But the first attempt at kind of bypassing the banking ban was a kiosk that Unocoin kind of launched, where users could, and I may be wrong here, but I can send you the link, but essentially the story was that the kiosk allowed people to deposit INR directly as cash, and you would get Bitcoin in your wallet, and vice versa. So that was directly using a cash line. It didn't go through any bank, and therefore wasn't under the purview of the RBI. Perfectly legal. But the way they had worded it was an ATM, and that didn't go very well with the income tax authorities, the governments, the police, and the machine was instantly confiscated. There was a raid at the Unocoin office, and as far as I remember, the founders actually went to jail for it for a little bit. In fact, one of the founders of Unocoin was one of the guys who levied the case against the RBI. He was there at every court hearing. So B.V. Harish, who's the COO of Unocoin, as you can see him in every picture, he was there at every court hearing regarding this. So the reason I brought them up was specifically because of what they went through and their close involvement with the case. This is not to say that the other exchanges didn't participate, but I think the guys who got hurt the most on a personal as well as a professional level for trying to innovate because of a government-laid shackle was Unocoin. Of course, there were that was them on one end. WazirX, on the other hand, actually launched their peer-to-peer service on the day that the government actually announced the ban. So, on the day that the RBI announced the ban. That they supported this from an exposure standpoint. Nishchal Shetty, who is a second-time entrepreneur by the time he started WazirX, successful in the first one as well, had launched a mass Twitter campaign called India Wants Crypto. I'm quite sure that anyone who has seen the Twitterverse with respect to crypto in India would have seen this. He really, kind of heralded, took it upon himself to make people aware of, what was happening, the benefits of cryptocurrency, how you can regulate it. And, he did a lot of work. I think the campaign went on for about 400 days. And a lot of people got to know more about crypto through his efforts. There was also Pocket Bits that helped fund the cause, and I think along with IAMAI and Unocoin, they sponsored the case. I could be wrong here, but from what I have seen and heard as a part of the community, this is what this is what has been going on. So all of these guys essentially came together and onboarded a lawyer, Ashim Sood, and he basically led this case against the RBI, and the verdict for it came out yesterday, and we won.
You kind of touched on the workarounds that WazirX, I guess BIA11 and maybe some others used of kind of rolling out a peer-to-peer way of trading without having have these fiat on-ramps.
Yeah.
With linked bank accounts. How does this affect? And I guess those companies are the ones that have kind of taken a large share of the market today. How do you see this affecting kind of that competitive landscape of exchanges now? Do you think we trend back towards the former model? Do we Coin, ZPay, people like this are going to be able to jump back in fairly quickly?
I mean, don't you think it's already happening? If you UnoCoin just maybe an hour back announced that they are starting withdrawals and deposits in INR. WazirX has also announced it. I think to your point, yes, it'll open up the market to a lot more players. As far as I know, KuCoin and OKEX have been doing a lot of work in India. BitThumb did a lot of work, and we worked very closely with them as well. The on-ramp was obviously the biggest problem here, and I think that a lot more of these guys would be encouraged to come in. But look, I also want to kind of touch upon the point that this is not the end of the battle. And it's there's a bit of nuance here, and if you allow me, I can kind of go a little deeper there.
Sure.
Is that okay? Yeah. Okay. So look, it's a Supreme Court judgment, and the order to ban bank transactions to crypto has been overturned. Sure. Having said that, this is still not going to be done and dusted. The Ministry of Finance doesn't have a very friendly stance towards crypto, and it'll be interesting to see how they kind of react to this. The RBI obviously will launch another circular, and interestingly, one of the startups in the startup accelerator that we are doing right now is led by the former chief information officer of UnoCoin, and he was he brought up a really interesting point to us that sure, the RBI can lift the ban, but the banks itself also have a prerogative to not work with a crypto exchange. Like, they can choose not to work with you as well. Having seen the stances that the regulators have taken, this could be an issue that crypto exchanges can face here. Finally, there's just been so much media around crypto in such a negative way. You still have the problem of perception to overcome. That will be interesting to see how these exchanges deal with it. The competitive landscape will change. New players will come in. The guys who trudged through the tough part over the last 1.5 years will obviously benefit the most. And they have a sense of loyalty, a following, and top of the mind recall because they stayed when everybody else left. But let's not negate the fact that larger players with deeper pockets are going to enter the market as well.
Very sober analysis there. Thank you. Kind of bigger picture thoughts on what this means for adoption in India outside of just the exchange business model. Any kind of other thoughts on, I guess, how it affects adoption more broadly, access?
I'm sure anyone who's spoken from India would have told you about how we are the biggest hoarders of gold. I think last count, maybe in some of the decks which I've seen last year, was that $800 billion in gold have been is stored locally with Indians, and we have an appetite for stores of value that appreciate.
1/8 or 1/9 of the world's supply. That's pretty this.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so the point I'm trying to make is that we have an appetite for stores of value and asset classes that grow like this. Bitcoin obviously has features that are very gold-like, and no one can really refute the growth that it has seen over the last 10 years. There was a stigma against it because of the RBI and Ministry of Finance's stances against it, but the Supreme Court ruling would obviously kind of help change that perception a little bit. The other point that I actually want to bring up is, DeFi and custody, lending, borrowing services on crypto will actually see the biggest uptake. You see, we are not a country of traders. I think our retail investor count is about 55 million last I checked, as opposed to, I think, more than 500 million bank accounts in India. So
probably the same size as Korea's retail trading community, then with 10 times as many people.
Exactly.
Times as many people. So that's an interesting point.
Exactly. So we are more a country of holders or hodlers, as you may as we may like to refer, and and I honestly think that services that provide interest and growth on crypto would be far more attractive for the regular retail investor than the option to trade on an exchange. So and look, the biggest problem there was the fiat on-ramp again. As long as the banking ban existed, getting new players into crypto was the problem. Now that part has been solved, I actually see India being a very, very big market for custody, borrowing and lending platforms for crypto. DeFi is obviously a part within that. It has those security benefits, but players who offer similar services for Bitcoin would actually should really seriously consider India as a huge market. And that to me is far more exciting than the exchange side of things, which is big in itself. But the traditional banking services for crypto would be fascinating to see.
The exchanges maybe as an on-ramp to other services that are kind of more fit what hodlers like to engage with.
Yeah,
I think it makes sense. You run an accelerator, but also you're kind of in the media space still. How do you think about the media's place in the Bitcoin ecosystem, kind of in India in particular? And then just, I'm sure you have some thoughts on how India is covered by the more global press. What can you give us some advice, I guess?
Where do I start? I have so many thoughts to say about this. Let me start with with the accelerator side of things. So when I say media, I'm not in traditional media in the sense that I don't have a blog or a podcast or a video channel or something like that. We do large scale events and we create media around that. We do these, focused accelerator programs and incubators. We're running one for the Eternity blockchain. As I'm actually at the venue where the accelerator is happening right now, so I'm speaking to you from here live. We have a media.
You're coming in live.
Yeah, I know. I'm coming in live. I know. Yeah. I'm not media in the traditional sense, but we have a strong media arm that augments our startup enablement programs, and of course, we do large events. Media has a very important part to play here. But again, media mostly in this case is driven by business. And look at the traditional markets. SIPs, your mutual funds, your stocks, brokers, and people who have an intention to advertise that and adopt it have money to make on those kind of investment tools. Don't expect people the media to position, mainstream media at least, to position crypto as an alternative asset class just yet. It's going to take some time. As far as the role of media in this space, I think that we've really got to start to think about reporting this responsibly, because it's not just an investment tool. It's a very powerful technology. And every time I meet a startup who's a part of a cohort of one of these accelerators that I do, the kind of things that they are solving with blockchain or distributed ledgers, decentralized economies and things like that, it is fascinating, right? And they're solving very core Indian problems. And every time a news article speaks ill about crypto, calls it a Ponzi scheme, is a blanket statement, it hurts not only the people who are invested in it, but it also hurts entrepreneurs who could actually solve big Indian problems because of it. So using blockchain. So I would strongly urge, for whatever it's worth, media to kind of take the time to understand the technology, yes, there is good and bad to it, and report with nuance. And I get it. I've been in the media space before. Page views are everything, and reach is everything. But not being nuanced and balanced in your reporting of this disruptive emerging technology will hurt more than just investors. It will hurt startups who could potentially solve problems that are crippling our country right now. So those are my main thoughts. And that extends to the way the world perceives India as well, right? We are a very interesting country. Yes, there are cows on the street, and there at the same time you would see a Rolls Royce kind of crossing it while it's with the same cow on the street. So it's a country with great dichotomy. We are a very resilient people, and I think we are also we also get disruption like nobody else. We get hustle like nobody else, and a technology like Bitcoin, a technology like blockchain, it's literally made for a country like India to be leveraged by Indians and Indian entrepreneurs, to be specific. So every time there is an unresearched piece of false, fake news that goes out about crypto, Bitcoin and blockchain, there is an implication that is far deeper than just getting clickbait and creating FUD at the moment. So I just want people to be sensitive about that,
Appreciate all those thoughts. And it is interesting. I feel like the kind of reaction to the ruling yesterday has been, partly quite understanding what happened, but then also it kind of takes me back a little bit to China's for, China's against, China's for, China's against. Story with Bitcoin in 2013 through 2017, and in terms of how big the market is in China, India with its kind of the more natural affinity to gold and things like that, you make some good points on how India really is this kind of right market. So just interesting kind of dynamics to think about.
Yep, I'm excited though. Just every little helps here, and a Supreme Court judgment with its finality attached to it has sent a wave of positivity in India. I mean, you can literally tell if you've been following crypto Twitter specific to India, just the unanimous exuberance that is. I really hope something good comes out of this.
And so market sentiment trending up ahead of the halving. Do you have any kind of thoughts more broadly on next 6 months for Bitcoin halving coming up? Regulatory progress in India?
I think there are two questions there. I think the sentiment, obviously it's an event that everybody is looking forward to. Everyone has their positions on it. The general crypto community in India is generally looking forward to the halving, and they are kind of looking to extrapolate data from the last time it happened. But the second question that you asked, would regulations come into play before that, or would they be timing anything in relation to the Bitcoin halving? I sincerely doubt it. It's just that the stances taken by the authorities towards crypto in India have been so extreme. For them to change that is going to take time, and then I don't expect them to have an immediate change of heart. So positive regulations is the end game, with this whole movement that people are having, towards the adoption of crypto in India, but don't expect it to happen anytime soon. And I honestly don't think that the halving will have anything to do with that. But yes, there is a strong sentiment within the crypto community in India. We're looking forward to the event. I think that the Supreme Court judgment has perhaps overtaken mind share, with regard to this more than anything else.
Any other thoughts on the next 12 months of Bitcoin in India before we close out?
Too early to call, John. I honestly don't want to, make any predictions right now, because it's a very it's still very uncertain times. We know for a fact that particular ruling by the Reserve Bank of India has been deemed unconstitutional, but the Ministry of Finance is yet to weigh in on cryptocurrency. I've been hearing some positive things about how they're looking at cryptocurrency as well, but at the same time, there are just as many negative news pieces that are going out there. So I think we've got to. It's time to wait and watch. There will be a lull for a couple of days, but I do expect some more stances to be taken in light of this. When that happens, I think we'll have a little more clarity. But for now, I just think that we should celebrate a well thought out judgment in favor of innovation and progress in this country.
Well put. And final question, recommendation. We close out with a recommendation for the country you're in, the city you're in. It can be a book, it can be a movie, it can be anything. Just what's one recommendation you have for someone who has not visited India yet, has not visited your headquarters yet?
Recommendation, oh my God, where do I start? It's such a diverse country. You see, you got to think of India as Europe. Right, it's the size of a continent and it's just as diverse. 300 miles, little less than 100 miles from where I'm sitting right now. It's a different state. They have different cultures. They speak different languages, and it feels like a different country. But it's all kind of just put together, quite well. I'm kind of surprised how we have this unity and diversity. So, if you're visiting India, don't think that India will be homogeneous. There are many, many different parts to it, very closely put together. One thing common is that the people are nice. They are very warm and they're very eager and want to help. The food is amazing, and if you like spicy food, you pick the right country. And I think the last one would be that in pockets you will see people working on things that will disrupt the world. So yeah, watch out for those three things in India.
All right, perfect. Love it.
Yep.
Disrupting the world.
That's true.
For sure.
Yeah.
We'll have to get into some more of that later. There's so much more we can cover.
Oh, for sure.
Thanks for your time. And I'll let you get back to your action over there at the Accelerator.
Yeah, absolutely. Please follow us on IBC Media _ on Twitter, and you can catch all the action there.
Perfect. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Cheers.
A quick reminder, all of the content in this episode is for informational purposes only. You should not construe any such information or other material as legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice. Nothing contained in this presentation constitutes a solicitation, recommendation, endorsement, or offer by BTC Media, the Let's Talk Bitcoin podcast network, or any third-party service provider to buy or sell any securities or other financial instruments.